Hello, 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 everyone. I am so excited to be here with you guys today. I have a dear friend of mine who I have had the privilege of getting to know more and more. We met online. We haven't met in person, but it's just been one of those relationships where you meet someone online, you have no idea who they are, but you get into their DMs. You have a phone call and a Zoom meeting. And it's just one of those relationships that I am learning so much from. And I'm so blessed to be developing. I am with LaTonya Smith. And today we're going to talk about the ways in which Black mothers teach their children to survive within a culture of systemic racism. Really, really important topic that we should be discussing today. For those of you that are new to me, my name is Kat Kim. I am a spiritual mentor and a leadership coach to rising women leaders. And I am founder of the School of Divine Confidence, where I provide spiritual training and confidence coaching to rising women leaders. Again, this is my dear friend, LaTonya Smith, and I'm going to read her bio because this is it's kind of like, wow, this woman is up to some amazing things. So LaTonya Smith is the Senior Director of Outreach and Engagement with a behavioral science agency in Southern California. Her experience includes work with the criminal justice system for both adults and children. She deals with addiction and mental health, education and homelessness. She holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a master's degree in human behavior, and is currently working on her PhD, her doctorate degree in industrial organizational psychology. LaTonya believes, which I love so much, LaTonya believes in advocating for those who are unable to do so for themselves, and is serving the most undeserved and disenfranchised populations. And she is especially proud of her work that she has accomplished with working in one of the most notable and challenging environments in Los Angeles, California, known as Skid Row. Welcome, LaTonya. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. There's so much that I want to talk to you about, even touching on like the professional work that you do, and maybe we'll get to that today, or maybe we'll save that for another interview, because I really, really want to I just want to understand and learn more about this work that you're doing for Skid Row. But the reason that we are on our call today is because you and I were on the phone, and you were telling me about, as a Black mother, how you raise your children and the things that you tell them and have to say to them. As a result of this culture of systemic racism. And I've heard about this, and I hear Black mothers and Black fathers talk about having to teach their children to be safe. But when I hear it from a friend over the phone, it was a different experience for me. And I'm like, they say that you become impacted by things that by proximity, like the closer you are to something, the more it impacts you. And I think the proximity I have with you, our budding relationship and friendship, and when you were telling me how, the things that you have to teach your children, I heard the pain in the voice, and I heard the anger. You know what I mean? So I thought, we have to get this on video. Like, we have to talk about this openly. So this is why I invited you on. And that's really what I want to focus on today.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things, and I just want to warn you, is that I'm clearly not Black. I don't have the Black experience. So some of the questions I might ask you might seem like totally like common sense to you, but I think it's not common sense for non-Black folks. Absolutely. So I want to apologize in advance for that. But one of the questions I have is like, when did you, as a Black mother, when did you realize that you have to warn your children about anything? Like, when did that occur to you? Before they were born, after they were born? Like, when did that happen?
So actually, Kat, thank you. That's actually a good question. And I just want to revert back to something you just said, because even in that question, something that you just said is edified. You said that you're not a Black person.
Mm-hmm.
You're not that knowledgeable of the Black experience.
Mm-hmm.
It clearly lets me know that your experience is definitely different, right? So people's experience is totally different from other cultures, and especially from the Black experience. So the question you pose, when did I know that I had to start arming my children, if you will, with this type of, and I call it a tool or a resource to maintain safety.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's not even, it's not like a light came on or I was handed this this book to say, hey, your son is now 9. It's time to start doing this. What happens is, in the Black community, we have uncles, we have brothers, we have cousins, and we see how our family members and our loved ones are being treated. When our loved ones come home to our family from work, or if they come home from going to the corner store, and we're hearing these stories, we're constantly hearing these stories of people getting pulled over. We're constantly hearing the stories of, oh, I was just stopped because they said I fit the profile. Really? What does that really mean? And because we have these experiences of always consistently hearing these types of stories with our friends, our brothers, our uncles, our fathers, it becomes a norm. And it's sad to say that this is a norm, but it is a norm. So what happens when you become an adult or a mother, and or a father, and you start having Black children of your own, you already know what this system is set up as. And you already know that at a certain point, you have to start teaching your children how to respond in case they're ever stopped or pulled over by police. I have a son who is 15, I have a son who is 12, and I have a son who is now 20. So my 20-year-old now drives. So of course, I'm communicating with my son, and we just had this conversation. We've had it multiple times, but recently we've had this conversation more and more with what's going out in the world, right? And so I said to him, tell me what happens when you get pulled over by the police. What will be your response? He immediately repeated the things that we've talked about, because he's no dummy. He knows what happens in this world, and he knows he doesn't have to be doing anything wrong to get pulled over by the police. It's a simple case of driving while Black or walking while Black, any of those things, riding a bike while Black. I think I shared a story with you about that, and I will get to that in a second. But I have my 15-year-old. Let me give you an example of this. Just yesterday, I believe it could have been the day before yesterday, he left to go to the store. And I was like, where's Hanif? Where's Hanif? And his little brother said, oh, I think he went to the store. I said, what? He said, he went to the store. So when he came in the house, I said, where did you go? He said, I went to the store, Mom. I just went to go buy whatever it was he wanted to buy, something to drink. I said to him, what have we talked about? And then he repeated what we talked about. Oh, you told me not to leave the house unless I let you know. That's a form of safety. And the reason why for him it's especially important is because this particular child is 15. He's all of 6'3" plus, maybe 6'4", and he weighs over 200 pounds.
Wow.
So to officers, seeing someone like him can be a potential threat. You don't have to be doing anything wrong. And so for me, it's important for me to instill in him, hey, you have to listen to me. And you have to listen to me because of all these reasons. So I don't know, maybe it was about 8, 9, 10 months ago, sometime last year. Now I want to be clear with people. I live in a very, very calm neighborhood. I am in Los Angeles, California. I live in Carson, California. And Carson, California, it's an okay place. There's not a lot of crime where I live or anything like that. But I'm sharing that with you to make this point. I'm leaving out of my subdivision. I see a young man on a bicycle. He can be any more than 15, 16, 17. He rides his bicycle right in front of me. From that point, I see a police car storm through a red light, just hauling tail through a red light. And I'm thinking, okay, something is going on. This guy must have gotten a call or something, and something is happening. Next thing I know, this car turns around. And when he turns around, instantly, I'm like, why is he turning around? And I say, I know it doesn't have anything to do with this kid. Maybe he's going back to the store up the street. Maybe he got a call. So this kid is riding his bike. The next thing I see, This cop pulls up, parks his car. There's a slew of cars behind him, okay? He jumps out of his car in such an aggressive manner. He leaves his car door open and he runs up to the sidewalk. Now, when I see this happening, I see this is a young Black kid. So I go up the street and I pull over because at this point, I'm ready to be a witness. Again, I have young Black sons, right?
Yeah.
And even if I didn't, knowing the climate in which we live, I'm responsible for protecting all Black children at any cost. I am responsible for that. And that's how I feel.
Wow.
And so I sit over to the side and the cop is talking to this young man for a while. So when the cop leaves, I see the kid leave. And he's riding his bike, and then he goes into the neighborhood adjacent to mine. So I follow behind him. And I say, excuse me. And then he said, yes. I said, can you please tell me what happened? Why did that cop pull you over? His response is, oh, he said that I was riding the wrong way in the bike lane.
Oh my gosh.
So that immediately, I just felt terrible. So I said to him, please make sure you report that to your parents when you get home. He said he would. So as I go back and I rewind, seeing this gentleman, this police officer, jump out in such an aggressive manner, I think about two things. I think about the fact that we're human. I think about the fact that this was a young boy who, you know, young kids don't always know what they're feeling. They can't always manage their feelings. Depending on how they're feeling, they might snap off and say something, you know, in a way where you feel that you're disrespected when they're really not trying to do that. I'm thinking, suppose this kid was having a bad day. Suppose this kid would have just had a problem with authority. He could have said anything. Had this kid popped off with this officer was ready to do some damage. It was clear. It was all in his behavior. And so that's where that whole walking while Black or driving while Black or bicycling while Black. I mean, did it really take all of this to tell this kid, hey, you know, you shouldn't be in the bike lane? You could have just pointed at him, you know, and get up out of there, kid. So it's those experiences, it's like I said, conversations that we hear, listening to the experiences of others that remind us of the conversations we have to have with our loved ones. I don't know if you just heard Tyler Perry. He did an essay. It just came out. They just showed it on the news, I want to say yesterday, when he shared his experience growing up of being stopped. He on his way walking to work, being stopped just because of the color of his skin. He said in the summertime, in the humidity, that white police officers had him on the hood of a car, as hot as those cars were, his hands burning, telling him he fit the profile. And these are things systematically that happens to young African-American men. They don't even have to be that young. It happens to a lot of Black men, no matter the age, and it happens in our Latino communities as well.
Yes, Black and brown. Thank you for sharing that. I can hear the frustration. And underneath that, the rage, you know, to have to live through that and to have to live in a country, in a culture that allows for that. It's like, you know, when I think about it, it's like, it makes me boil inside. Like, why? You know, why? Because of the color of your skin? It doesn't make any sense. So I just want to acknowledge like the intense emotion that I can feel around this. And I had so many questions. First of all, let's go back to just the fact that your son is 6'2" and 100-something pounds. Like, you know, he's a big
200 something. Let's be clear.
How old is he? This one?
He's 15. He's a football player.
Oh my goodness.
He's a football player. He's a big guy. But this is the thing. He is a gentle giant. People love him. But that's not what racist, and I want to be clear. When I say what I'm saying, and as people are listening to me, this is not an indictment on police officers. But this is an indictment on bullshit police officers. And I'm just going to call a spade right now, okay? And those who practice from a form of racism, or just because you have a badge, you know, you want to, we call it in social service, power tripping. You know, you want to use your power to exert all this false courage, right?
Yeah.
And to intimidate people or to harass people. And those are the things that concern me. When my 15-year-old is very, very independent. He's very independent. He doesn't like for me to hover over him. He likes to do things on his own, and I encourage it. Yeah. However, there's boundaries within that. Whenever he leaves my home, even when he's out riding his bike with his 12-year-old brother, in the back of my mind, I'm always praying, Kat. I'm always praying, and I'm always concerned about their well-being and what they may possibly encounter when they leave.
Yeah. It's so wrong. Like, why? Why do you have to, it's like trauma, you know, it's trauma. And that's really what it is. It's generations and generations of trauma from this systemic racism that goes back 450 some years. And it's living in the consciousness of Black people. And it's also living in the consciousness of America. You know, I think about this a lot, that, you know, when we think about, you know, individually we have our own souls and we have our own consciousness, but collectively we have our collective consciousness. And I see like America having its own personality, its own birth and growth, and its own consciousness. And within the consciousness of America, the country, is the systemic racism, the chattel slavery, all of that sin that has occurred, and that America has imposed on Black people, and that's festering. It's all coming up now. I mean, it's been coming up for years, but you know, that's all part. It's all living inside of the collective Black people. You know, and I can feel that, and it's horrible. And it's like, why do you have to worry about that when your son is simply opening the door and going out into the world and doing his thing and growing up and being a man? And the fact that you have to worry about that every single day of your life.
Exactly.
That's fucked up. You know, that's like, that's
it really is. It really is. So let me tell you this. I was talking to my fiance one day last week. So we live near Cal State University, right? In Dominguez, which is, again, it's in Carson, California. And they have a track there. Well, it's a walking path that's open to the community. And so they leave, you can access this path like every day of the week. They leave this gate open and you can access it every day of the week. Yeah. He literally goes there every single day to walk. Yeah. And my boys, sometimes I'll go riding the bike up there with my boys or something like that. So there's usually a police car stationed there, which makes perfectly good sense. The police car is stationed there to monitor, to make sure everything is safe. And I get all that. I support and I understand all that. Mm-hmm. So he's on his daily walk. He sees those police officers all the time. Mm-hmm. This particular day, I don't know if it was the same cop car or not. I don't know. He says that when he got home, he said, on my walk today, I had an experience. I'm like, well, what happened? So he says that as he's walking, the cop car pulls up beside him and say, hey, have you seen anything suspicious around here? And he's like, well, what do you mean suspicious? And so they give him some mumble jumble and say, well, have you seen anybody? He said, no, I haven't seen anybody. And so he said, then the cop said, so, well, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Mm-hmm. And so his response was, I come here every day to walk. As a matter of fact, I don't know if it's you or another cop, you all see me every day because you wave at me. I live in this community. Wow. So the cop is like, oh, okay, no problem. Enjoy your walk. Now, my fiance, again, is a big, burly, Black, bald man. Okay? Mm-hmm. So because you see this big, burly, Black, bald man, what are you all taught? What is that communicating to you? Is that communicating something, that he's a threat? This man is out here exercising, walking the trail.
Yeah.
and I can understand, hey, something's going on, we just got this call. If it even went down like that, I can understand asking questions. Have you seen anything? But to further the conversation with, well, what are you doing around here? That, let me tell you, that pisses people off, because number one, we are tax-paying people. Okay,
Yes.
we're professionals. Whether we were professionals or not, that's not the point. But my point, because it don't matter what you look like. Brothers in suits and BMWs get pulled over. It does not matter. Yeah. It's like this. It's this code. It's like this. It's the culture, and that's what it is. You've seen just recently some congressman, and I don't know what his position is in North Carolina. It was North or South Carolina. I just heard him say yesterday. He was speaking to the need for criminal justice reform, and he mentioned how even driving home from work in his suit, how he was pulled over, and the police officer's reason was because he didn't turn on his signal earlier enough. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are the things. These are the things. I mean, it doesn't matter how little. These are the things that we know that we deal with in our communities. Yeah. And so it's always like we always have to dot our I's and cross our T's. Yeah. But that is another form of oppression.
Absolutely. And I just want to convey this message when I'm hearing this, and as with the work that I do as a spiritual teacher, and the education around, like, what I teach is about consciousness, what's in our consciousness. And what's in our consciousness is what we experience in our reality. And what I want our listeners and our viewers to understand is that when it's in our consciousness, that we always have to be careful, that we can't go out into the world and be completely free and be ourselves, that we always have to be on guard. That impacts your experience in life, hands down.
Yes, it does.
There's no way that Black folks cannot be impacted by the consciousness of racism. There's no way that Black folks just are not influenced by that, and it doesn't impact them. And I want to get that point across to everyone who's watching, that even if a Black person doesn't necessarily have a racist moment or an experience of that, when they're going out into the world and they're afraid, just imagine if you're afraid and you're going out into the world, how does that impact you from inside out? I had a client who was a Black man, and he told me, and he suffered from a lot of anxiety.
Okay.
He told me that one of the things that he always worried about was even like when he's going to at 7-Eleven or something, he said that, I'm afraid that if I walk past a white woman, that she might be afraid of me, and he told me, like, he would just, he's afraid to look them in the eye, like he'll look down. And when I hear that, I'm like, wow, that's another form of oppression, like another subtle form of oppression, where a Black man can't show up confidently. He has to look down, as if just the mere existence of him will scare somebody.
Yeah, that's something right there. I think for me, what will come up for me with this gentleman, the first thing that came to me was there's some trauma he's experienced, or he has had some type of experience where he has been accused of doing something. And I'm thinking, I wonder how old was this gentleman? Was he 65? And maybe there was some experiences when he was younger or with his grandfather. That breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I do want to say this. I do not teach my children to, first off, I definitely believe in confidence.
Yeah.
I believe in putting your best foot forward no matter what. Yeah. I believe in teaching my children that you do not have to shrink to make other people feel good about who they are. Because I've had those experiences with people. Yeah. I expect them to show up and show out. However, I expect them to be careful. And what I mean by that is, it can be something as simple as, and I think I might have shared this with you, when you go to the grocery store, you always ask for a receipt.
Yeah.
Because if anything happens,
Right.
I don't want them to mistakenly think you did anything, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I just
you know,
I want to pause you there because as
mhm,
an Asian woman, I
mhm,
have never had to worry about that. I have never had to worry about that. And I want to make that clear. And there's nothing wrong. There's no difference between the inside of me and the inside of
yes.
your son. Like there's nothing different about us except
Mhm,
the color of our skin when we're going to a grocery store and we're paying for things and we're leaving. Like we're
yeah,
following the law. But I've never had to worry about that. And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
another form of, not for this, but that's another form of racism, the model minority, right? The model minority, she's Asian, so she's not going to cause any trouble.
Exactly.
But there's layers and layers to that too, which is, the model minority myth is a
Mhm,
way for America to say, well, there is no such thing as racism. Look at these Asian people. They've
mhm,
done fine, they're excelling. And the racism that Black people are experiencing can't be real because look at the model minority. They are the model of being, non-white and they're doing fine. So I just want to for the people who are
yeah,
watching, like I've never had to worry about that, but you have to tell your son, what are the things? So tell me, like, okay, one,
right.
get a receipt.
Right. And then actually what you just said is key because it goes back to the conversation you and I had when I told you, and I'm going to share this with the viewers,
Mm-hmm.
what my mother had to teach my brothers, right?
Yeah.
And you said, hey, I had a brother. My mother never had to have those conversations with my brother.
Yeah.
And so I have several brothers. Of course, I'm old, so everybody's younger than me. But even when my brothers were 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22, even 23, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they would leave my mother's house, my mother would make them put backpacks on, right? Whatever they were carrying, backpacks at the time. And this is about, this is probably about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. She made them do this for many years until they were able to get cars. The reason why she did this is because she wanted them to appear less threatening. She didn't want her sons having any problems with the police and others because they can be pointed out for any reason. Like I said, you don't have to be doing anything. Now, these brothers, my two brothers, again, one is 6'4" and one is 6'7".
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
Not very big guys, but they're very tall guys, so if anything was to happen and they're in the vicinity, who do you think they're going to point out? The most memorable.
Yeah.
Oh, those tall guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So her way of protecting them was, if you have to leave, then you need to take the tools with you that's going to make you feel less threatening. And even with that, my mother, unfortunately, because of the state of this world, because she knows what her experiences were and people that she was in connection with, what their experiences were, unfortunately, when my brothers were growing up, they didn't have much of an experience of being as independent as she probably would have liked to, or even they probably would have liked to, because she was very, very overprotective, but she was that way because she always felt like she had to keep them safe. And I can remember thinking, I'm never going to be that way with my kids. I'm never going to be like that with my kids. People need to get out. They need to explore. They need to experience things.
Mm-hmm.
And even though my kids are getting out, exploring and experiencing things, I am exploring and experiencing things with them because, again, they are 12 and they are 15. My 20-year-old, we can't hover over them forever.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to let them go and just pray.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do. And we teach our children how to communicate with people, especially those in authority over them, so we won't be going to a funeral.
Wow. Okay. I want to pause there because that right there is a real thing I have learned within the Black community. The fear of having to go to a funeral. For those of you that are watching, and if you're non-Black, it's going to be very foreign to you because that's not our lived experience. That's not the experience of Asian people. I know that. And it's not the experience of white folks either. The fear of having to go to a funeral. That means the fear of someone that you love being killed, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had my work with anti-racism and my study around it began April 14th, 2015, when a dear friend of mine, a client of mine, her son was murdered. And it was absolutely tragic. And I went to her funeral. I'm not going to go into the details of all that, but I went to her funeral, and one of her friends was speaking at the funeral at the podium. And this was my moment, because she says her friend who also had a son who was killed.
Oh my God.
And this is what she said. She said, this is all too common for us Black folks. This is all too common. This is normal within our community, that our sons are being killed. And she said, this should not be normal. And I was like, wow, I had never thought of it that way. Because being Asian, that's not, we just don't worry about that kind of shit.
Yeah.
I've never had to. And I'm not a mother, but I have I have 3 brothers, and never have I heard my mother say, when you go out, be careful of police. When you go out, watch your tone of voice. When you go out, watch for authority. Never. That's not part of our consciousness. It's not part of what we have to worry about. The only conversations that I've had, and I've heard my parents have with my brother, is do good in school.
Yeah.
And usually that's pretty representative of the Asian culture. So, I mean, let's compare and contrast this, right? Like the biggest fear that, and I'm speaking broadly, right? Not every Asian family,
broadly.
But, the biggest fear that Asian families have is that their kids are not going to go to a really good college. That's our biggest fear. And that has its own issues, okay? But that's for another, that's for another thing. But to compare that to, you and other Black families, and here's another thing that I want to bring up, like with you, LaTonya, you are a confident woman. You are educated. I could hear, and you make it really clear that you instill in your sons and your family and your daughter that, be confident. And I know that there's a healthy dynamic within your family. What about the families that are broken? And their mothers and their fathers are broken, and there's drug addiction there. And I mean, because this, you work in this field, right? So when there's not a strong mother and father role for for the parents to instill confidence in their children, and instead there's a broken family dynamic, that's where we really get into trouble, right?
Yeah.
So can you speak on that? Because I want people to see the difference between an Asian family. I'll speak I don't know about white families, but Asian family and a Black family in this in our talk today. So tell me more about like what you know of that type of family dynamic and what happens there.
Whew, girl. Honey, let me tell you, we don't have to have a few Zoom calls.
We're on.
Some of what you're speaking to, I've actually experienced within my own family.
Wow.
But we'll save that for another call. That's a tough one. That's really a tough one. And that's one of the reasons why I'm in the profession that I'm in, because, all too often, we do have communities where people have addictions or they have mental illnesses. And unfortunately, they're not in a position, especially speaking about parents who are not in a position to give their child that extra level of support or that extra level of protection. I don't know how much I can really even say about that. My hope is that, and I've seen this first experience, that there's usually sometimes other family members in there who can give that support or who can give that layer of protection. The unfortunate aspect of that is when there is nobody else, what happens to that kid? That kid is left exposed to a lot of things, that can potentially harm them. And then they, in turn, if they don't have anyone to look up to, if they don't have anyone to support them, then what happens? they run the same path as the parent,
Exactly.
Even in my profession, like when I first got into this profession many years ago, I first started with kids. All right. And I worked in therapeutic group homes and therapeutic shelters. And the very thing in which you're speaking, the children came to me. They
Yeah.
came to places like group homes. They came to shelters. They came to living situations like that. And what can you do? All you can do is provide a safe environment. Try to teach the child life skills as long as they are there. Try to instill in them the importance of self-advocacy, doing well in school until they move on to the next transition, whether that's another group home or this independent living programs, or they age out of the system.
Yeah.
So, that's a whole nother story with so many different layers.
Yeah. And I actually do want to have another talk, with you around this, because there's, it's a real issue in our society, in our culture right now. And I come from a broken family. So I come from a very, very toxic environment and dynamic, where we've had, my father had a gambling addiction, a drinking addiction. My older brother had a drug addiction. I had a drug addiction. I fell through the cracks of the system. Like a model minority, I was getting great grades in school, but because I didn't have that support at home, I ended up getting into trouble, dealing drugs. All types of things. I was arrested, went to jail. I was dealing cocaine, and I can tell you this hands down, because I watched this roll out for other Black friends. Like, the system is set up against Black people, period.
That's right.
Period.
That's right.
Because I got pretty good treatment, even though I was breaking the law. And, I saw this from my own eyes. So I saw this parallel thing going, rolling out, is like my own life and my own addiction and my own dysfunctions and, the pain and suffering that I went through personally. But to see someone else who is Black or brown go through that, and to see the trajectory completely, it's like we're going down, but then it goes like this.
Yes.
And I've experienced that personally. And for you to be in that line of work, it must be so heartbreaking for you to see.
Oh, let me tell you, it's very, very heartbreaking. I've gone to courts, and I will sit in the courtroom and I watch who's in the courtroom.
Yeah.
And anytime I see a brown or Black person in front of the judge, my heart immediately breaks. Yeah. And I think about not only what went wrong, but what would have happened had this person had different support or just made a different decision. So let me tell you this. So in my role, I had a different role prior to the role that I have now in my job. In the role that I had before, I would get these referrals. Okay. So the referrals are people who are referred to a certain program that I was over. And the referrals can come from jail. The referral can come from Department of Mental Health. The referral can come from any other social service agency. And so the referrals will hit another person before they will come to me. Okay. So usually that person can say, okay, yeah, we'll let this person in. We'll let this person in. So they only came to me if there was a problem. So the problem was this person, who was a white male, who was taking these referrals, was trying to vet out the referrals. Yeah. And once I got wind of it, I'm like, well, what's going on? What's the problem we have here about the referrals? So he was all up in arms because he would read the referrals, and to him, he could picture whether or not he thought the person would be a good referral for our system. Wow. Because in his mind, oh my God, this person's been to jail. This person's been to prison, which by the way, he would say to me, but they've been to prison. So to him, that meant that this person wasn't a good fit for our program. Hold up. Wow. What are you talking about? Yeah. Number one, this is who we are here for.
Right.
The underserved, right?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
people who no one else will take. That's what we signed up for. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you mean to tell me, in reading a referral and knowing that this person has gone to prison, you just automatically say, we can't accept this person? Now, on the referral, it did not say whether the person was white or black. It did communicate whether the person was male or female, and it did communicate their mental health history and their offense if they had anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if they had an offense. The problem that I saw in that it's almost what you just said. The problem that I saw in that was, if I'm looking at a face sheet and it's telling me what this person's was convicted of and his or her mental health issue, I know right away that most people who are convicted and going to jail and prison are once again brown and black.
Yeah.
So you mean to tell me that you think that I'm going to turn these people away when they can go anywhere else and get justice, where they can go anywhere else and get help?
Yeah.
If anything, they should be able to come here and get the help. And damn it, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So I have a problem when we have these conversations and we're having these meetings and we're talking about offering support to this person because this person looks a certain way, or because this person's economic status is it's a little bit more robust than this person's. That's what I have a problem with, and that's why I call what I do my ministry. Because service is the price we pay for a place on this earth, right? And it makes me feel good to be able to help people. It makes me feel good to be able to give people a second chance. And I'm by no means a pushover. I know everybody is not going to get it. But who am I to say that you're not going to get it? I need to give people a chance. And I feel like our system is not set up for that. I feel like our system is set up to help people fail. Just look, why are we even having this conversation about having social workers and outreach workers and case managers on the job with police officers? That should be happening. I will say, the agency where I work at, we're already doing that. We're already doing that. That should be happening because police officers are not equipped to deal with clinical issues. So you need to have that balance. And unfortunately, our system is a system that is perfectly imbalanced.
In so many ways. And so what I want our viewers to take away is that the system is so imbalanced, but it's not just impacting, generally Black people, but impacts Black people wherever they are on the socioeconomic scale. So for those who are underserved and who are really, really in need, they're still set up to fail more so than someone else, right? And then there's families like yourself, comes from a healthy background. You guys have a healthy family upbringing in your core family, but it's still like the system is still set up so that your son, who is 6'2" and 200 some pounds, gentle giant, compared to, let's say, an Asian man. I'm just going to use Asian people as an example. An Asian man, like imagine them going out on a walk. Who's going to be accosted first?
Right.
I can pretty much damn assure you that an Asian man is not going to be. It just isn't. It's not in our consciousness. That's the danger, and that's that's how horrible this is.
Correct.
And I just it must be so tiring. It must be so tiring, like, to deal with all of these complexities and all these different levels. And what's probably more tiring is that white folks and most people don't fucking get it.
Exactly. What's tiring is it's overstimulating. You come to a point that I just can't take it anymore. You turn off or you log out because it becomes the norm. Why is this the norm? It's modern day slavery. It's modern day lynching. It's all these things that are now modern day, and it's very, very, very exhausting. It's very exhausting. I was on social media the other night. The whole Rashard Brooks, I still can't watch it. So I had started watching I guess it was the engagement between him and the officer, and I just stopped it. I put the phone down and I went off in a daze. And my fiance said, what's going on? What's going on? And I said, it's just too much. It's too much. He said, put it down. You're getting overstimulated. Put it down. That night, I dreamt about all this stuff. All this stuff.
Yeah.
It stays with me.
Yeah.
As a Black woman, as a mother of Black children, as an advocate in my community, and I want to be clear with people, I'm not just an advocate for Black people. I love Black people, don't get me wrong, but I'm an advocate for the underserved. I serve poor people who are white. I serve people with addictions who don't look like me. I serve people with mental health issues who don't look like me, because I believe in being a voice for people who cannot be a voice for themselves. And so for me, wrong is wrong. You know, so let's speak out on that, right? And I was going to drive home a point and I just lost it, but I just want
you are driving home many points today, so don't worry about it, girl.
I just want to be clear with people, in loving who I am and in loving Black people does not mean that other people don't exist. You know, if that was the case, I'll be vetting out all white people. I'll be vetting out Asian people. It doesn't happen like that. You know, so, you know, I'm an advocate for people who need me. But, girl, we get tired. We are tired.
Yeah.
We are tired.
I seriously can't even imagine that. I mean, I get tired from my family and like my own personal things within my family. Like my family has also been through trauma. And and I, you know, as a minority woman, you know, a woman of color, I feel the burden of like taking care of my family. That's like a special burden that I think women of color, you know, take on. Like all these responsibilities, taking care of our children, our families, and society, and all that. We carry that. So I am no stranger to the stress and the anxiety and the constant, like, you know, around, you know, feeling the trauma of our family. But it's different for a Black woman and different for Black families. And I can, you know, I can't imagine what that would be like. So I want to ask you one question. I mean, we could go on forever, and I'm going to have you on again because I think we've got so much rich conversation. On that note, I'm curious, like, what can I do, or what can another non-Black person do? And I want to hear from you personally, like that would help to alleviate some of that for you. Like, is there an experience you had where some non-Black person did something and it was just like, you know, at least for a minute, it took a little bit off your shoulders? Like, what, if there was, or if there is, like, what would that be?
Okay, so let me tell you, the thing that comes to mind, I don't know this is something that someone can do, you know, I don't even think this has to even do with being a Black woman. Just has, maybe it does. It just has something to do with being a mother. You know, I think I had an interview one time, and a non-Black woman interviewed me with another woman. And after the interview, because of course, you know, I share who I was and I share things about me, and I usually mention my children. And at the end of the interview, what she said to me was, you know, that's what I want to do. I want to put more single mothers in leadership positions. That's what she said to me. And that was when my career really began to take off. For me, you know, I don't know what can be done, to be honest. I think it all starts with conversations. And these conversations are hard conversations, but they are conversations that need to be had. I am now at a point where I'm able to have a conversation without getting emotional. You know, I think you experienced that with me. I mean, for the past few weeks, I'm having these conversations with friends, and I become very emotional. I cry. I become upset because this shit is painful. It doesn't matter that person in Atlanta is not my son. I am connected. I am connected because of the struggle. So it's very painful. I think that just to start having these conversations is a start, because even with what's going on in the world, even with the demonstrators, even with the unrest, we finally got the attention. We got some attention because people can say what they want to say. But without that, people will be laughing at us. Look at Kaepernick.
Yeah.
He knew, and they laughed at him. Oh, he got paid, but they laughed at him, right?
Yeah.
So when we had to do something a little bit more assertive, a little bit more aggressive, that was the only way to get people's attention, you know? And so for me, it's just important to start having conversations. It's important for different people to be a part of the conversation, because this is not a Black problem. This is not a white problem. This is a human problem.
That's right. Yeah.
And you need different people at the table, not just professional people either. People that live in these communities that are being plagued and affected. You know, start these task force, start having conversations that can impact legislation. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's so good. So what I want our viewers to take away right now is, like, this was a conversation between me and LaTonya. And I'm hoping that it could be as simple as this, that this helps. Does it make you feel at least a little bit better that we've had this conversation and that someone's listening? Can it be something like that?
Yeah, it makes me feel better that I'm actually able to have a conversation with someone who does not look like me, and I can actually be honest and not feel like I'm being judged. You know what I mean? That's what feels good. And it feels good. People can actually hear this perspective, you know?
That's what I want to drill home right now, is that when we have these conversations, it's not a conversation where I'm telling LaTonya what she needs to do or it's not about that. It's about me, showing up, you, the non-Black person, to show up and be willing to listen, but to listen on a deep, deep level. That's what I want you guys to take away. It's not just cognitively understanding. No, I want you to listen from your heart. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a Black family, a Black woman, a Black mother, a Black father, and to imagine what that would be like and what you would feel, what you would think, and what you need from the people around you. It's like deep, deep listening. That's the conversations that I encourage you to have, that I hope that we're going to have more of.
Yeah.
And you know what? It is uncomfortable. It's going to stir emotions within you. It's going to hurt. And we've got to be willing to do that. And
Yeah. Can I just add this real quick?
Yeah.
What I would like for people who like to read and just want to go do some research, this book. This is Neil Websdale. It's called Policing the Poor.
Yeah.
There's also one called Policing Black Bodies. I'm not sure if Professor Websdale wrote that one. I'm going to read that one next. But this book right here speaks volumes to what's going on in our society today. Wow. And let me say this. It was written by a scholar, a white scholar, so I know folks don't believe him.
Yeah. Like, why? Yeah.
This was written by Dr. Websdale. He's a professor, I forget at what school. And he did some research, and he actually went into these communities and interviewed these communities and these police officers, right? And so it talks about saturating the Black communities and poor communities with police officers, and how that turns into a form of oppression as opposed to being a tool to help. Right. So, hey, if you have some time, read the book.
Thank you. Thank you for that resource. Thank you for showing up and sharing it. I can just really, like, I get it. It's fucking tiring. I mean, and so because of that, I'm so grateful that you're here with me and sharing the pain again. And I'm thinking about the next time you have to do it and share the same story. And then the next time you have to do it and share the same story. And I'm like, wow, that is tiring, So thank you so much for your time, LaTonya. You are a blessing in my life, and I want to learn more from you, and I want to have you on again. I am committed to being a better advocate for my Black and brown brothers and sisters. I am going to make mistakes, but I'm willing to do that. And I hope that for you who is listening and watching right now, that you also are willing to make the mistakes. That's the only way that we're going to learn. Dismantling racism doesn't happen perfectly. It's not going to feel good. You're going to make mistakes, but I don't know who I heard this from, but you got to be humble and fumble. Be humble and fumble. I think I heard this from Rachel Rogers. Be humble and fumble. That's part of the process of dismantling the layers and layers and layers of racism. It's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable, but you've got to do it. You've got to do it.
Uh-oh.
And with that.
Oh, great. There we go.
See you guys, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Kat.